Good morning and welcome to the Boonafide Experience podcast. YouTube, I hope you're doing fantastic today. Lots happened this week. Lots happened this week. I do want to give a quick recap. We had the Xbox launch, we had the PlayStation launch, we had Hex going back to Optic, and we had Call of Duty dropping today. If you're listening to that right now, you're probably playing as you're listening to this on YouTube. So crazy week. This episode is special. This is an amazing one. I had the pleasure of bringing on Zach Sass. He is the CEO and co-owner of the Esports Jersey apparel company called Sector 6 Apparel. They provide sublimated jerseys for multiple teams, whether they have one follower on Twitter or they have thousands of followers, or they're small organizations or large. Fantastic brand, fantastic story. We cover quite a bit, and really you get inside of the mind of an actual CEO to understand, we're all human. We all make decisions, and there's a lot weighing on these people that are making important decisions. And it's a fantastic episode. So I can't wait for you guys to watch that. Before we do get started, if you are new here and you do enjoy the content so far, or if you just like my beard, please go ahead and subscribe in the button below or above. I think it's above. I'm new to YouTube, forgive me, and go ahead and turn that bell on. Make sure you get notified whenever I drop a new video. Lastly, if for those of y'all who know me, they can vouch for me. I only hype up products I do enjoy or that I love, that I'm obsessed about. One of those is Advanced GG. I've been partnered with them for over a year. They are the first company that has clinically tested their products on esports athletes and has actually proven to enhance focus ability during gameplay. So if you're an FPS or first-person shooter sweat like me, or if you're playing the new Call of Duty, go ahead and go to the links below. You can use code BOONA for 10% off of your entire purchase, excluding samples. And if you also want another supplement for after that late night gaming, that late night sweat session, they also have a product that has CBD in it. It's been proven to help with relaxation, with depression, with anxiety, and that is also in the store in the link below. Separate link, separate website, code BOONA for 10% off. I'll also be linking a video down below as well if you want some further explanation on the chill product, on the CBD product as well. So now that we've done the plug, I do I do stream on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we'll be doing live YouTube specials on Friday regarding more of a personal side of my life surrounding drug addiction. So be sure to like and follow, subscribe wherever you got to go, whatever platform has, you know what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and get started with the show. Good afternoon, Zach. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm excited to chop it up with you. Thanks for having me on here, but I'm good. How are you?
Brother, I'm fantastic. It's been a really good day today. Obviously we had some good news coming in, but it's even besides that, it's been a day for me of reflection, a lot of gratitude, and I feel like there's a very big sigh of relief, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel you there for sure. I feel you there.
It's a good day, and I think that we can kind of like finally begin whatever healing looks like, whatever road we got to face. Like, I think that finally there's a lot of people that are finally just like, okay, we as a collective had enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, I cannot disagree with you. I know we mentioned it a little bit before. I'm not the most well versed political person, but same. I just, for one, I'm just glad for everything to be behind us. There's more or less, and just figure out what we got to do and just do that. It's kind of where I'm at.
Exactly, man. Exactly, dude. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. I know COVID, even though COVID has happened, that has not reduced the amount of work that we have to do. It probably has increased and elevated. So it's been a wild time. So I'm glad we were able to coordinate this. I'm glad that you're able to come on. As I mentioned a little bit earlier offline, like I had found you through your own podcast, through my very first guest that I had the podcast about, which was Synchros, or Brian formerly of O2, so yeah, dude, happy to have you on here, man. So kind of tell for those of you don't, for those people who are listening who don't know who you are you? What do you do?
Yeah. So my name is Zach Sass. Ironically, that's probably a whole nother story we get into, but like if you put my first name and my last name together, people make fun of me in middle school and high school. But, it's a different story. So that's why I kind of do the pause sometimes when I introduce myself. But anyway, I I own, or partially own, co-own, and operate Sector 6 Apparel. That's probably where most people would have heard my name in the esports space. And if you don't know what Sector 6 is, Sector 6 is a custom merchandise and apparel company for esports teams, organizations, and brands that are, Joe and his three buddies that are going to a local Halo event, anywhere from there all the way up to like, your mid-tier professional organizations that sell merchandise to fans. We have a service for everybody up to and in the middle of all that. And that's kind of where most of my esports experience is. I did some graphic design before and like intermittently through that. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where I come from and what Sector 6 is.
Fantastic, man. I mean, so kind of tell me, let's go back a little bit, man. Like growing up, like what were, as a gamer, like what got you into gaming? Like, what was like your game? What was that like?
Yeah. So I'm 26. So just, I guess, to give frame of reference for anybody who's older or younger. The first game I played was, and I say this wrong and I get a lot of flack for it being from New York, but I played a lot of Super Mario. I know it's Mario, but I will always say Mario. Or not Super Mario. What was the one on the Nintendo? Like the rectangle controller? Was it Super Mario?
Well, I played. Well, it wasn't Super Mario 64, but I just played Super Mario Brothers. I mean, that's like what it was.
Original, or yeah.
I played on the SNES. I played on the Super Nintendo. I didn't play on the original Nintendo.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I played on the. I can't remember. I feel like I'm piecing things up, but yeah, it was one of those.
Yeah.
First game I ever played, and then like that turned into like Duck Hunter, another like classic, and like all of those games just because my dad had it. I was probably 5 or 6 when I first came into that. But then after that, the first I really got into gaming when I think it was a PlayStation 1, and Spyro the Dragon played religiously. All of those like styles of games. But to be honest, I really played whatever was around, whatever's hot at the time. I kind of just played, and then. What led me to esports was like the first time I picked up Call of Duty was just like, okay, this is legit. Call of Duty and Halo, and then the competitive edge, and then online gaming, and then it's scaled, and then you find out what this entire world is. Albeit it was a much smaller world 7 years ago, 8 years ago. But once my eyes were open to like the potential of what this could be, and like friendships and like true competition and like organization, whatever else, just everything went up from there. It was really, really cool. But yeah, originally all the OG games I really played, and one thing led to another and found my way here.
Hell yeah. Well, I like getting to like the one thing led to another, because I think that's the beauty of this whole journey. You know what I mean? Like, you mentioned you were in graphic design. Like, did you go to school for that? Was it just a passion, or are you self-taught? Like, what is that?
Yeah. So explaining how I got into Call of Duty, or eventually I made my way to Call of Duty. Played, if you're, for anybody who understands how Call of Duty works, there the competitive off of game ladder was called game battles that most people used. I played a ton of game battles tournaments. I hated having the default team picture, so I was like, let me make something. Let me see what I could do. And then I found like Twitter, and that's when I made. Well, I knew what Twitter was, but I found gaming Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter. I was like, all right, I have to dress my account up. I don't want this to be boring. So I cracked Photoshop CS4 or whatever. And I was like, all right, let me figure this out. I figured out how to make a black background. I figured out how to throw text on there, and I picked a pretty font. I threw an M4A1 from Black Ops 2. I put my gamer tag up, and one thing led to another, and I was like, okay, you could do this. And then like, I definitely didn't become a professional overnight. I don't consider myself a professional, but I didn't get good at it overnight. But I got major interest in it because I've always been tech forward, and not like software forward.
Gotcha.
I like things working for me. I don't know anything about the back end stuff. But and I consider myself kind of creative. So I just tried to learn how to use this program. And one thing kind of led to another, and people started hitting me up to get work done. And then I was like, oh, I can make $5 a header here. One thing led to another. And that's kind of where that scaled. But I do graphic design still. Like I edit photography that I shoot for myself. I do like work for friends. The company I also run Black Box. We do graphic design there. Odds and ends for Sector 6 I do for us here and there. But definitely not a professional. But I know my way around Photoshop now a lot more than I did back then.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you seem like the person who has like, you seem like the person you don't have to teach how to hustle. Like the hustle is probably already there, but like when the hustle's there, the skill can be learned, whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, something I say quite a bit here recently, actually more than anything, is like that I joke that I went to the International School of YouTube or whatever, or University of YouTube or whatever, just because like, everything I learned graphic design wise, especially since we are on that topic, was from YouTube. A couple of really, really big guys that I watch in the design space back then that still are around now are rated designs. He's big in that. Not as much, but he was. And Sessa, who's on 100 Thieves now.
Sessa's awesome.
A ton of tutorials. And like, I don't eat that content as much as I used to. But like the amount of times I'm like, how the hell do I do this? And I jump in and it's like, oh, there's a tool for it. And I'm like doing it all ass backwards. And then like, one thing leads to another. But like, whether it's that or even now with photography, like I try, I spend my time on YouTube trying to educate myself, with entertainment here and there. So like, you really could learn anything on YouTube. You don't get the paper that comes with it saying you're an expert.
Right.
You could get good at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you touched on a fantastic point. I was actually I've been watching a few YouTube videos on this. So I've been really exploring that. It's like, the main thing that people go to YouTube for is like how the fuck do I do something, and it's like, you can find everything on there. And I think that's a lot of why these people are so big, is because like there's a sense of trust that's built when you create YouTube videos, because people understand that like you're not like, some of it is entertainment, and some people find their niche, entertaining. Sure, you got to be entertaining to do it, but the primary purpose is to provide value. It's like literally the most commonly searched thing in YouTube is how to do something. So I'm not surprised, and that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, dude. So got a little bit of graphic design. Did you ever compete? Like, did you ever like make it? I'm curious. Did you make it like far in game battles, or was it kind of just like?
No.
I
found out very, very quickly that I was not cut out for it. I had we had a friend group there was a friend group that it was like a moving friend group, but my good friend of mine, we go, he was probably one of my first friends in the industry. His name is also Zach Smalls. He and I played duo tournaments. We were like a lot of times we were a team of two, and like we would get a third and fourth in, and we rotate guys around. And it took me a little while to realize I wasn't the guy to compete. I didn't really bring a lot to the table. I didn't shoot straight, more or less. I didn't understand. There's a lot that goes into Call of Duty, especially map rotations, and spawn timers, and all that stuff. And I just didn't click. It didn't click for me. So I found out, pretty much in Black Ops 2, the game that I started playing competitively in, that it wasn't for me. So
gotcha.
I pursued graphic design at that point, but I wanted to be in the community. Like I knew I wanted to be in the community. I just couldn't play. So at that point, it clicked, and I was like, let me just do freelance design. I joined a few teams just to kind of get my feet wet and see what was up.
Sure.
But yeah, that at that point I found out that I knew I wanted to be in the community. But definitely not as a gamer or as a professional.
As a competitor, you know what I mean? Like or a gaming competitor. I think it's one of the major points of this podcast, is because like when I'm 28, about to be 29 in March, and so like for people like you and me, like we live in a funny, like you could honestly say we were blessed to be born in the way we were born, because I think we understand we suffered just enough with how bad technology used to be to make it to where we can actually appreciate what we have now. I think it's one of the major things that we can actually appreciate, because we made the switch from dial-up to high speed, and how just revolutionary that was.
I could just, you saying that, and I could hear the AOL instant messenger thing when you plug in, and then I could also hear my mom screaming at me because she was on a phone call that I just booted her off of. Days.
Yeah, they were, man. And I think, because for any people who's young, who's either listening or watching, like, before the high-speed internet came out, like, this is why gaming was such a big thing, because we were gaming before high-speed internet, and even just broadband was like, it was just gaming locally. This like opened the door to like actually create a real community around this. And it wasn't just some like group of kids in their mother's basements. Like a lot of people enjoyed this, and a lot of people were able to connect, like being able to connect worldwide, nationwide. Like, what a cool thing, man.
Yeah. I mean, one of my this is before I knew anything about competitive, but like if you remember Call of Duty World at War, one of my best friends, never even knew his first name, never knew anything about him. We played we climbed the hardcore search and destroy ladder in that game. We were both top 500 or something. And I was like, how long ago was World at War? I want to say I was probably I want to say 13 or 14, maybe.
I don't know.
if you're fact checking, I'm gonna just let you run it. But anyway, like I never knew his first name, but every single day, and this is before I had a cell phone, every single day I would sign on, see if I had a message from him, see if he was online. If he wasn't on, I'd come back in an hour, and I'm like, all right, I'll play with him later. And like, it's just weird how you can connect with people.
2008.
2008. So that would make me, I would have been 14. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. Like unfortunately, it was one of those things where, I mean, you've probably seen this meme where you sign on Xbox and all of a sudden that person just never shows up ever again.
Yep.
But like, it's weird the relationships you could have with people who like never actually meeting, which I was raised to steer away from that. But my best relationships aside from my fiance right now and my family are people I met in gaming.
I'm glad you said that, because like I was raised the exact same way, where it's like everyone on the internet's out to get you. It's not a safe place. Like they're not, somehow, like I was painted the picture that they weren't real people. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, as weird as it is to say, it's like just because they're online, it means they're a robot, or like it means they're a less than, or it means that they're a like. And I was always raised to believe that, and it's how untrue that is, because very much like you, like I have a very strong recovery community, but like, some of my most meaningful friendships have been on the internet, or people that I've never even met in person before, and people that have had my back without me having to ask, with like they just reach out at the right time to like whether I'm doing good or whether I'm not doing good, or, like it, and you can't put a price tag on that. And just like the real world, there's a lot of people out to get you there, but there's a few people that you call friends. It's the same shit. Like, you just got a bigger pool.
Exactly. And, obviously, there is the potential of some like really weird shit happening on the internet, which is kind of what our parents were probably trying to keep us away from. And obviously they did a good job because we didn't mess up, more or less, but like, I don't know. It's the same. The best thing about the internet is like, there are people in, Chicago, Illinois that I never thought I probably wouldn't have met if there wasn't internet. There's people in, Nashville, Tennessee that like I work with, and I'm really good friends with, that like, I would have never met if the internet wasn't a thing. So like, I'm super grateful. But on the flip side, to combat all of that, I'm super curious how, I think about this all the time. I'm super curious how successful I would or would not be if I lived in a world, if I grew up, or if I was this age in the 60s or the 50s where there was no internet, and like if I wanted to meet with you, I had to fly to wherever you were, sit down with you, and like have a suit and tie and like do all that stuff.
Yeah,
just because it'd be a different way of life, and that's something that like it's in my head all the time. If I could time travel, that's what I would want to do.
Same, bro. I mean, because like I honestly think about that, but you also got to look at the narrative was so different back then. Like the narrative was, would what you're doing even be a relevant craft? Back then, like, would you still like the same things? Would you have been influenced by different? Like I think about a lot. It's a fascinating topic, because right now we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the internet. I wouldn't be able to do what I love if it wasn't for the internet. Same, probably. You probably could do what you wanted to do. You could, but it would be very hard.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I love it. It makes it, on one hand, makes things a lot easier, but on the other hand, there is there's a different nuance to it.
There is.
And, but at the same time, in theory, I could pick my phone up and I could tweet whatever, and anybody could potentially see that. That doesn't mean that they will, but it could get in front of, Derek Jeter's face, or it could get in front of, LeBron James's face, just because the right person interacted with it. And that is the really cool part about the internet to me.
Yeah. Like my graphic designer, he's in the UK. Like, I would have never, known who he was or what he did. I'm not sure if you follow, like, there's a content creator that I've always followed. His name is Stallion, or I'm Stallion, and he's a UK streamer. He does a lot of COD content. And like, I remember he found this guy, and I remember seeing his branding, and I'm just like, oh my God, like I whatever price I got to pay, I got to have that, And I just think it's the fact that we're able to have, not only have calls, but have free calls where I don't have to pay international phone line, phone fees. I mean,
that used to be a thing for people who don't know that.
Yeah. Like now you can video chat, literally take payment, share screens with people across the world without having to be charged for it. And I mean, I don't know, man.
Yes,
may not seem like
all that, and that's all the great part. Now that I think about all of those aspects, like I don't know how well I would do back in the 60s.
I feel very blessed when I think about what you, because I think about that as well, believe it or not. Like, and I when I think about that, I just feel it brings me back to this moment. I'm like, man, dude, I'm fucking blessed to like be alive in the time that I am, because if I was the same person born in the 60s, bro, I'd be miserable. Like I'd be miserable. Well, I mean, I'd try to find a way to be happy, but like there just wouldn't be as many opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, no, I feel that for sure. I guess my thing, I only say it because like I'm curious. I don't know if I'd ever want that, but like, I definitely agree with you. I feel the same way. I feel, and I'm so glad you said it the way you said it, of like, people that are, our range, whether that's probably 24 to like maybe 35 is probably pushing it.
It's probably pushing a little bit, but yeah.
But came up in a world where it was like very, very hard. You'd have to show up, when the sun came up to like your friend's house, or you went and knocked on their door.
Mm-hmm.
Like now it's like, yo, I'm outside.
Right.
or it's like, you have everything is different, at the childhood level and whatever. But because I think about that a lot, is why I'm saying this. But I think it's a really interesting concept for sure.
It is, man, and I think we had just enough of like, you could call it quote unquote real world, because what is the real world anymore? But like we were taught to interact with people face to face, but we also can appreciate how to bring that communication and teach others how to communicate. Communication's the same way. Like it's we're all people. It's just the medium has changed with how we primarily communicate. And so we were able to bring things like that to the internet. And that's why like there's been times where like I've reached out to people and they're like, yeah, I had like a couple other requests for a podcast, but I wanted to do yours because like it was genuine. It was authentic. It was, like there wasn't like it wasn't like an obvious attention grab. It was like, hey man, let's get together and chat about your story. And I think about that a lot though. It's nice to hear someone with the same kind of fascinations or curiosities, we could call it.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably dive super deep into all of these at this point, but we have to save everybody's ears.
That's right. We could, man. It's probably a conversation for offline, but when it came to, so how long has I want to jump into Sector 6, man. Like how long has that been around, and like what was the kind of like the one thing led to another when it came to like just freelance work to like I own my own business? Like kind of tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so another really good example of like one thing led to another with this. So Sector 6 was started under another name. It was actually called Esports Apparel for the first year and a quarter, 14 months or so. October of 2014 was when we publicly launched that brand, Esports Apparel. The way it started though was very, very not as most people would expect it. This gentleman had reached out to back up. Knowing my history of graphic design, I just got interested in a ton of different things. I was like, I don't really know if I like this style. I don't know if I like this style. I found a jersey PSD. I was like, let me just design a jersey. Let's see what happens. So I designed a couple jerseys. I don't even remember what they looked like, to be honest. And I tweeted them, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. See if people like them. Yeah. This dude hits me up, and he's like, yo, I think I want to start this jersey company. We're gonna, print jerseys for teams, get them to events, whatever. And I was like, or he was like, do you want to do the jerseys for me? I'll pay you like $50 a jersey. I was like, sign me up. That sounds cool. Yeah. I was like, let's get on the phone. We get on the phone, and I was like, you know what? At this point, I had just recently got promoted at my real life job. I was a guest service team lead at Target, so I managed the front end and all that stuff. So I had this massive ego that I could run my own business, and I was like, this is perfect. I could run my own business. Let's go in on this 50-50. I'll design the stuff, you do the business, you figure out how to source it all, whatever. One thing led to, I was like, by the way, I have another designer friend who could help me with this, or could help us with this. We'll split it 3 ways. So I brought my friend in. The first guy's, his name was Nathan. The second guy, his name was Drew. We're starting this company. One thing leads to another. Nathan is no longer involved with the company. It's Drew and I. And then from there, one thing leads to another. And then we get Josh involved. And then one thing leads to another. This is, I guess, just the ownership part of it.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating stuff.
One thing led to another. Drew is no longer involved, and that's not a story that I really would like to get into.
That's okay.
But, as we scaled, right? Like, the originally it was me, Drew, and Nathan, and we were like, all right, let's just kind of do this on the side, see what happens. There was no intention of me ever quitting my job, this being full time. We just wanted to have some type of legitimacy or like tie to the community in some capacity. So the first jersey we made, we did kind of more or less pro bono. We charged them costs, we sent them jerseys. They actually were a team in the UK. I forget exactly where, somewhere, I think right outside of London or something. Gotcha. We spent an absurd amount of money on them because we had to ship them.
Right.
Yeah. It was a learning experience. But yeah, so we were like, this is cool. They didn't pay a lot for these jerseys. Maybe we could charge for this. This is a service we could charge for. One thing leads to another. We're taking meetings. We're like, yeah, let's print jerseys for you. Like, you might not sell them for fans, but you have a Call of Duty event in a couple months that you might need them for. And then one thing leads to another. And then all of a sudden we have, we're talking to this team Revenge, which I don't know if you're familiar, how familiar you are with like Call of Duty.
A little bit with Call of Duty, but not that's not like, yeah, I'm not familiar with who they are specifically.
Okay, yeah. So team, I'll get into it before like I guess ruining this plot of the story. But Team Revenge was a team we did jerseys for, and they were competing in COD Champs. And this is also how we met Josh, because he co-owned that company.
Gotcha.
So we, did these jerseys for this event. We sold them to them, whatever that relationship looked like. And then they come and place in second at Champs. And it was like this really big legitimacy feeling for both. At that time, it was Drew and I. Yeah. We were like, all right, there's something here. We could sell this. We could, this could be a business. We don't have to quit our jobs or anything, but this is our side hustle for now. Mm-hmm. Shortly after that, Revenge kind of went on a little bit of a hiatus. We got Josh involved. And then at this point, we were Sector 6 also, by the way. Gotcha. So then towards the end of 2015, or I'm sorry, towards the end of 2016, we were at a point where like, we want this to be legit. Let's what do we have to do to figure out how, I can quit my job, you can quit your job, talking to Josh, and we could scale this thing. And it's like, it becomes a real life job. Yeah. So for me, I guess to shortly answer your question, like seeing our jerseys, like at an event as big as Call of Duty Champs, with players wearing jerseys with our, logo on it, I was like, all right, it might not be there yet. We might not be able to turn this into a company that, pays salaries and like I could be financially secure on yet, but there's something here.
I think there's yet. It's important.
Yeah, exactly. So, one thing led to another. We kept at it, didn't take any funding or anything like that. And then, we get to the point where end of 2017, obviously that's not when the conversation started.
Yeah.
But end of 2017, we finalized a deal to be a part of the Infinite Holding Group. So that basically, allowed us to kickstart we were legit before that, but like that allowed us to, I guess, take it full time. That's when I moved out here to Texas, and Josh and I were able to like, well, for a year we lived together, but like we were able to live together and kind of put everything into this, and it it has been an amazing experience.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Where did the name? I appreciate you going in that far in depth, because like there's so many like I love how easy it is to start a business today, but it's because it's so easy to do it. Everyone thinks that it's really easy to actually run a business. Like just because it's easy to start a business and slap CEO on your Instagram title doesn't mean that it's actually. And I'm sure I struck a chord there, but like. But or everyone who calls themselves an esports org is like, what the fuck does that actually mean? That's probably a side banter conversation, but I enjoyed like the process of like, because like business owners are human beings, right? Like business, like, and you could argue that there's a huge level of risk that why business owners are respected, because it's not a risk that a lot of people are actually willing to take. Not only time, financially, like emotionally, like it's a huge thing to do that. And from what it sounds like, it was a rocky start with like figuring out like, I don't want to go into the stories, but like when it comes to the ownership, like that's a whole, like, how do you make this right for everybody? How do you treat this like a business? How do you like, that is a huge thing to discuss.
Especially with, over the course of, our direct ownership group, or the time that it's changed, it's been, obviously me and then 3 other guys, and obviously Josh, it's just Josh and I now, and that'll never change. That like the direct mindset of this company. Prior to that, like, all of us never had like any degree in business management, had any aspirations, or maybe there were hidden aspirations that nobody really recognized right away. But like, if if you would have asked me what I wanted to be at 16 years old, I probably would have told you a lawyer or like an architect or something. Like, just because those things were always went back and forth in my head. I never really even saw this, looking back, their tendencies. But like, it was one of those things that we were all like, we don't need this to be a full-time thing right now. But we know there's potential, and in the time of the potential of growing the brand and like speaking more and like learning how to sell and like learning how to run a website and like learning how to logistically move product around and all that stuff, we'll learn how to also run a business, and by the time we actually know how to run a business, maybe we could take this full time. And that was the mindset we had for literally, pretty much the entire lifespan of the company until we took it full time. So I don't know. It's like, like you said about ownership and things like that, decisions were made. Obviously, the original gentleman who came to me, was, I couldn't say, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to take the idea. Just that's not the person I am. But we didn't see eye to eye, more or less. He had different intentions than we did. And, that was a very easy conversation. The Drew one is a little bit more of a, it's a little bit more of a deeper conversation, but more or less, we also didn't see eye to eye. I guess it was just a little bit deeper. And then Josh and I have almost always had the exact same vision about where we want to take this company. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're so successful.
And that's got to be magical, dude. Like, that's got to be a cool thing to like when you get past all the humanness, when you get past all the bullshit, when you get past like the trust, like when you finally get to that point where like you both trust each other and you honestly both believe in the same thing, like it makes I'm sure it makes disagreements a lot less of a big deal. Like if there are disagreements, I'm sure they're easier to work through if there's very, very many.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I said, Josh and I see eye to eye on pretty much everything. There are definitely times where it's like, nah, that doesn't make sense. And we like have, that type of conversation. And I can't recall Josh and I ever having a disagreement or an argument about something that turned into anything other than like, oh yeah, fuck it, we'll move on to the next thing. And it's like, it's never something that we take, personally, because at the end of the day, we're having this conversation for the betterment of the business, not because of like, he needs to have this ego or I need to have this ego or like I need to be the better person. It's always just been like, we want the company to succeed here, which is very, very important. If you're going to get, for anybody who's looking to start a business, just recently started one or whatever, you cannot have that type of power struggle with somebody if you're going to own the company 50-50 or whatever it ends up being, equally. If there's a different conversation and, someone has majority, then they're obviously, however you want to deal with that is on you. But it's very important for the partners within a company to see eye to eye as often as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not about your success, it's about the company's success. And I think that if that's understood, then like, I think a lot of cool things can happen, man. So like what, Sector 6, like what is the story behind that specific name?
So Drew, he was very adamant about the military. And as my brother's a Marine. And I've personally always supported, the military in general. So, I don't know where it kind of came from, to be totally honest with you. The name was I think it was one of a couple names that were kind of being thrown around, and we were just, I think it just kind of came up, and we were just like, that just kind of makes sense. But it came in tandem with, when we first launched the brand, with the tagline "On Your Six," which for anybody, most people, even Call of Duty players, typically know what that means. But like, signifying like having your back, and that was kind of our like, like it was like we were kind of here to help you, because at that time, apparel was super tough in this industry. Jerseys and sublimated apparel was super tough. A lot of times people were showing up with like watermelon sized head holes on a medium sized t-shirt that was like belly button length. And it was like, who the hell did this? So, our big thing was like, we want to be here to make sure you get your shit done right, more or less. And then the other, in 2016 when we launched this brand, the other portion of the company was meant to be like a military support type company. Think of Grunt Style or like a 9 Line, something like that. One thing led to another. Drew was no longer, I don't know if it happened before or after Drew wasn't involved, probably before. But we kind of were just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, esports is working for us. This is probably 85-90% of our business. Let's double down here. So we just axed that entire side, kept the name because we didn't want to go back to esports apparel because very generic.
Right.
And then we just doubled down on it. We built a really strong brand at that point. We had some brand presence. And then, we just doubled down on it. But yeah, it really comes back to like, it came to like, or up from like some type of military support, and that's kind of the roots, I guess.
That's cool, man. No, that's awesome. I was like, it's a very different name, it's not it doesn't fit in with the rest of it, so I had to ask,
For sure.
And so I've bought just a almost kind of like a selfish or a personal question, like it's like, when it comes to the sublimated jersey process, you mentioned about like how challenging it was, like, what is kind of like, as every time I'd order one, I see that the process was like a 20 to 30 business day turnaround time. Like, can you like, because as a consumer, for someone like, and especially in a world now where everything is so instant and 2 day and like, now, that it's almost kind of like, whoa, like why is that? So what kind of goes into that, man?
Yeah. So, I guess, in the beginning of this, it was
Yeah.
really, really hard to communicate to get people to understand why.
Yeah.
But now, a lot of people have been in this space long enough. There are definitely new organizations that are made this year and don't know the process that we have to communicate on, and we do a really good job of like on communicating the process up front.
Yeah.
But there is a really lengthy process, and back in the day, when we first started, most companies printed out of one of 2 or 3 factories in China, and the sublimation process itself is a pretty lengthy process.
Mhm.
And in China, when you're working with a manufacturer in China that you don't really have a connection with,
Yeah.
you're just another asset line on their list. You're going to be the bottom of the barrel when they print your stuff and they sew it. That's when it goes out. There's really nothing you could do about it. So that's why the average 4 to 6 week turnaround time, I think, is what most companies do right now. But in theory, I'm trying to find something flat here. I'm going to use this rag. Kind of like a towel. So in theory, you get a piece of transfer paper. This goes through a sublimation printer. It runs through flat, and on this there will be a sleeve here, a shirt front and back, sleeve, collar, whatever. And then this goes on a piece of cloth.
Gotcha.
And then you press it on there, or it's not really a heat press, but it's pressed on there to transfer it to the cloth. You get rid of that. And then you have the cloth and you cut that out and sew it together. In between, there is a curing process that, like, the ink has to cure to the t-shirt, like or the jersey and all that. So when you're talking about printing in China and like a massive factory, you're just kind of on a line, and whenever our order gets put in, that is our whatever 15, 20, 25 jerseys that we put in that day. It just they get to it when they get to it.
Right.
But so that's kind of why the process takes so long. And then to add to all of that, typically shipping from China to the States is a massive process, especially when you're not doing like
bulk. Yeah, like massive. Yeah.
And when you're doing bulk, it's more costly, but at the same time, it's way more efficient because unless you're sending it by boat. But then it has to come in, and then especially even with us in the beginning, like it came in a giant box or a couple boxes, and we'd have to open them up, take them out, figure out which order went where, and then send them out. So there is all of that process in it. And that probably still is the same turnaround time for like if you or some random guy wants to start up an apparel company, does all the business stuff, and then finds a place that could do it. There is that. That's the entry level aspect of it.
Got it.
Now, what we do is a little bit different. We work with manufacturers that we have really, really strong relationships with. And most of our product is off the production line, packaged up and on its way to us, excuse me, in about 10 business days from the day we put the order in or whatever. Obviously, we provide like rush services and all that.
Sure.
And then, same concept, it heads to a fulfillment center, fulfillment sends it out. And the big thing, there's a stigma around jerseys and sublimated apparel that 4 to 6 weeks. And most of that is because you're putting it in China or like a Pakistan or somewhere where it's like, you don't have that provider doesn't have a lot of a strong relationship with the manufacturer itself.
Sure.
So they have no leverage. But, with us, we provide a really strong relationship, and, we have a little bit more leverage is maybe not the right word, but we have a good relationship, and there's a lot we could do to kind of amplify that experience.
Sure.
So all in, for us, we look at around, it's like a 2 to 3 week, and that's mostly because of COVID, but,
right.
Obviously.
Yeah. That's, no one could predict that happening. Right.
Yeah, for real, man. I mean, to be honest, and on the topic of it, COVID hit, and we were like, oh my God, like this is going to be I not that we gave up or anything like that, but it's like this is going to be a weird hurdle to get out of. And this year is shaping up to like financially be our best year, which is like really weird to think about. But you know, COVID has been interesting. But yeah, that's how timelines kind of work. You know, there's more to get into it, but I don't want to get too.
Yeah, no, and that was now, like I said, that was like personal as a consumer, because I bought, you know, jerseys from a few different places, and it's just I knew there was something to it, but until I know the why, it's hard for me to be like, okay, I'm cool with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and there are things like, and on the, you know, we live in a 2-day world here. There are T-shirts, right? That or even like a hat like this hat. It's like a single print hat. This is something that, you know, the blank's already put together. You're just sewing on it. Or a T-shirt like the one you're wearing. You know, that might be a screen printed T-shirt, but assume it's a direct to garment print. In theory, that just kind of goes through a belt. Printer prints ink on it and then sends it off, kind of like you're printing a piece of paper, and then it's packaged up and ready to go. Like that's something that's done pretty quick. The fact that this is, you know, printed, cut, sewn, you know, and all that. So there's a little bit longer of a process. But the 2-day world thing is something that we hear quite a bit, and it's we're kind of in a different type of market.
Definitely, man, definitely, and I think it's a good thing to. I really wanted to ask that too, because it's good to educate people in the process, because like when people understand why things take so long and how this is different than your typical product or your typical T-shirt. Like this is actually a Teespring shirt. This is actually one of the a creator that podcast that I follow, and so you know it is a Teespring shirt. But it's, you know, and even then it's a 10 to 14 business day, you know, turnaround time. Because I don't 10 to 14 maybe, but you know, like it's no more. It's not a 2 business day thing, you know, because it's custom. It's not there's not like a inventory of these shirts. It's made to order, you know. And I think that, you know, as people, especially as a lot of people focus on consumer businesses and not like bigger brands, like it's important to understand that, like, you know, these things take time. There's a reason why it's a better quality. There's a reason why, you know, it takes this long, because there's like 18 fucking steps that you have to go through to get it, you know?
Don't get me wrong. Like I've put a lot of thought into like, what can we, or I, or, you know, whoever I can get involved do to make this process, like, you know, you buy a jersey and it ships next day. And in theory, it's possible. What makes that possible? You know, we start to print all that stuff. We either buy a giant factory, which we're not at a point to do yet, or we buy and bring that stuff in house and print it all in house. And like I physically print, cut, and sew. But the issue there is the scalability becomes immensely more difficult. You know, so if I'm spending my entire day printing all the orders that come in today, I'm not building the company.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, if we need to bring somebody else on, and then Josh needs to get involved, and then nobody's, you know, working on building the company. We're all servicing clients, and there's nothing that we could do, you know, to scale. So like, you know, there is that. I would, believe me, one of the things that is, you know, has concerned me for the longest time is like, why can't we just find a way to print jerseys next day or 2 days or whatever? Because you know, Amazon has us beat there.
Well, And I knew by like just by watching your presence, watching how you like just like who you are based on what I've seen and based on chatting with you now, like I know that that's probably something that keeps you up on certain nights. You're like why can't we do this? You know what I mean?
I wish, I mean,
I've
definitely spent nights thinking about it, because like it's one of those things that like,
because you're a consumer too.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and that's important to like for a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand that a lot of, you know, business owners or people involved in business are also consumers. So like they see a lot too. And like I see a lot of things from the consumer side. But like, you know, there's definitely a piece of tech that's going to come out and it's going to be like, oh my God, like, you know, sublimation of printing is going to be like insanely different now. Or there's going to be a printer that comes out and the printer is going to cut, sew, and print all together. And, you know, you're not going to need a human. You're just going to need to drop $250,000 on it or whatever it is. But I'll be first in line to pick that up. That's for sure.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, you know, I wanna touch on some of the recent expansions, man. Like you have expanded to the UK. Like, you know, like how did, I mean, kind of like, I guess I don't even know what to ask there. Like, how did that come to be, and like kind of like what has been, what does that look like? I mean, coming from someone who's only serviced in the US or mainly serviced in the US.
And to, I guess, to shed a little bit of light on it, our production and fulfillment before that has been in the US. We still shipped, but the issue there was like, you know, shipping to, you know, Europe or Asia or, you know, South America, like sometimes things would get stuck in customs, and customs is like, especially now, customs is really bad with like letting things through and all that. So there's just a process. And then on top of like that length, there's a lot of times there's like a duty fee you have to pay that, like, if you're buying a $60 jersey, you might have to pay an additional on top of shipping, the $30 for customs clearance, which, it varies from country to country. So it's like, we can't prepay that.
Right.
So it's like a really, really tough situation to be in, because we want to be able to service everybody. So thus this conversation of Europe, honestly has been something that, we originally planned to do this in, I think we're going to do it in March or maybe early April, but then COVID hit and it was like, well, let's not do this now. But the thought process behind it is we feel that we've done a really, really good job of being able to mitigate the time from, you coming on our website and saying, I want a jersey or a store, us designing it, listing it on sale, and then you having it in your store or in your hand physically. So all in, assuming everything goes smoothly, we typically have that entire process takes about a month. You purchasing a store, us going through the entire design process, and then a month is kind of, I guess, average, which is pretty good. But then after all that, our, like I was saying before, 2 to 3 week turnaround time is kind of our average there. So what we wanted to do is, because we know, there aren't a lot of companies that could consistently hit 2 to 3 weeks on all orders, or even 10 to 14 days prior to COVID for us was the conversation starter. So what we wanted to do is pick our process up and put it in Europe, so there are no customs fees, or there are less customs fees. Then we could at least service the UK specifically, and there's never any issues going from England to Ireland or whatever. But and then obviously we would open it up to all of Europe, because it's a lot easier for us to ship from our fulfillment centers in the UK. So it's a lot easier for us to ship internally in the UK and then outside, from or into like any other country in Europe, as opposed to like shipping from here to Europe. So we really just wanted to be able to replicate this process over there, and that's kind of in theory, we fluffed it up quite a bit, but in theory, that's really all it is. We're doing this. The process is the same. The product is the same. Everything. We're all the same. We didn't like, but bring on a group of guys that aren't us, that kind of don't really know what we're doing. It's still all of us. But we saw if we were to get into any other continent, I guess, Europe kind of made the most sense, and it was the most attainable, just because our partner, or our ownership group and parent company, We Are Nations, one of the guys for one is from the UK, but we have kind of a direct connection there, so it was a little bit easier for us to get everything set up. That way we could just activate on it, and that's kind of what we did.
That's awesome, but I think it's something to, I know you minimized it a little bit. It's like, all we really did was just kind of pick up and move over, but there's a lot of it goes to show that, like, I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, number one, but number two, like, there's a lot of value in keeping when people know a brand, they want to know that nothing is going to be meddled with. Like, Whataburger here in Texas is like, it's Whataburger. Like, I can't imagine when Whataburger, I think it's actually going to franchise. Like, if they franchise to other states, like, what that quality is going to be like over there. It's like, that's not Whataburger. Like, like you gotta wonder with that, man. Like, cause it's, it was built here in Texas. There's the heart and soul of it here. I will die on that hill that Whataburger is the best fast food burger joint, hands down, fast food.
As a non-native Texan, I support that statement. So and I'm only here, what, 3 years? Just over 3 years at this point. And I support the hell out of that, because for one, the pride in that chain in itself. And they recently, what did they recently sell? And like the internet exploded.
Naturally.
I love that place, man.
Naturally. It's fantastic. Like, I'm sure In-N-Out in California is different than In-N-Out here in Austin, Texas. Like, cause I'm in Austin. Like, it's like, but I don't get it. Like, I don't understand like why that's so good. To me, that's just like, okay, the burger may be healthier, but like when it comes to like, when you're going to fast food, I could give two shits about it being healthy. Like, let's be real here. Like, I'd rather have caramelized onions and bacon and sweet and spicy sauce. Like, that's what I want, but
my order,
bro, I literally got it 2 nights ago.
Hell yeah. But on the same token, like, if they did franchise and a Whataburger popped up in New York, they might not be as good as here, but like an issue that I have is pizza here sucks.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
Like, there's pizza places that are okay, but like back home, I could find some guy. His name is Joe. He opened a pizza place and called it Joe's Pizza, and that place is bomb. Here, pizza's a little bit harder. So like
it is.
I don't know why people say it's the water, but for Whataburger specifically, I would imagine it's more of like a, they just want to franchise and be a part of it, and it might be a money grab in a different state or something.
I think so. I'll say there is something about the water because there is some truth to that. I thought it was a bunch of bullshit, but like number one, my friend's family, they own the number one pizzeria in Staten Island called Danino's. They actually own that, and
really?
And they also own Bella Rose on Staten Island as well. So it's two restaurants that both of them own. Number one, Italians eat like there's no tomorrow. New Yorkers eat. I have never been so full in my entire life. Number one. But to get back on topic, the water, there's a place in Texas or in Austin here called Home Slice. It's right off of Congress. And they actually have a relationship with the Danino's restaurant in New York where they actually buy imported water from New York to make their pizza down here. Like
the only place that I'll eat here is about 5 minutes from my house, and they opened up like right after we moved into the house we're in.
Yeah.
And we went in and we're like, oh, this place looks good. It looks like the right thing. We met with the owner. Right. Like I shook the owner's hand and he was like, yeah, or we said we're from Long Island. And I shook his hand and he was like, oh, we import our water. The pizza is good here, because he was originally from Brooklyn. I was like, it's the water.
It's the water, dude. There's something to it. It may not be everything, but it's the water. It's the passion. It's where something was born. So I think there's a lot of that too. There's a lot of like, kind of like I'm a diehard Halo 2, Halo 3 fan. Like there's just some, because now that I don't like Halo 5, I love to see the franchise progress, but those games did it for me. Like, yeah, I mean, and for a lot of different reasons we discussed earlier in the show, reasons just like there was a lot of personal reasons as well, but it's just like that. I think that plays a part in it too. It's like where it was born, means a lot to different people,
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's cool. If you can replicate your brand in the UK and still deliver the same experience, kind of circling back on that tangent, like,
I forgot.
Like, yeah, that's how the whole thing started, but I think that's fantastic, man. If you can just copy paste it, like where you literally get the same experience and it provides a better experience, there's less money because shit, even my designer, like, when we talk about things like when new technology coming out, he's like, yeah, dude, it's a struggle here because like we have to pay VAT, we have to pay the duty fees, we have to pay, like, it's almost like double the price of the item to get something shipped over there from here. And that's a real world problem, man, so.
Yeah, I mean, between like, this is between you, me, and the people listening, it's not the only thing we're doing as far as expansion. We have plans to do some more of this, and I think the big thing here is like, like you're saying, our biggest problem was the shipping, or not problem, but like that was the biggest facility or issue we wanted to facilitate, and the fact that Europe in general hasn't been serviced super well, and that's an itch that we're looking to scratch.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, it's awesome, and it kind of ties me into like the final couple questions, man. I kind of want to wrap this up, but like Sector 6 now, like where what's kind of your dream with this? Like, is there like a different leg of product that you also want to sell here? Kind of like, what's the dream of Sector 6? Like, what's the evolution of it?
Honestly, man, and I wish I had a better like answer for you, but like I like, this is what it is. Originally it was like, I want to quit my job and do this full time. And obviously, that happened. But like what we want to do is we want to continue to cement the name for ourselves. We provide a really, really quality product in a reasonable amount of time, and we don't, our big thing is we want everybody to be treated the same, regardless of the size of your organization. We don't care if you have 100,000 followers on Twitter or if you have 0. Like, if you're going to get the same treatment overall. So like, we want to continue to do what we do well. As far as new product, we'll probably stick to what we do. And that's not to say, every once in a while we have a new cut of product.
Sure.
About a year ago, we did the 6 series collection, which is like basically an elevated bunch of cuts. But as far as like goals, I just want to close out every year, I guess, bigger than the previous year, whether that's clients or financial books or whatever. But yeah, I honestly, like what I'm doing right now is kind of living the goal that we had set for ourselves and doing this full time. and we just want to be able to keep making this a bigger thing. And I guess a big thing that I've wanted to do, and it took us up until not now, but when we all first moved out here, we were all able to do this. But I see the success in this company for me personally, the ability to pay people's paychecks that isn't just mine and isn't just Josh's. So like Josh and I, we own the company, or we own a piece of the company with our ownership group. But the ability to provide, either contractor payments or salaries for other people, I want to be able to scale that. Right now we work with 3 designers and we have a full-time employee. But I want to be able to turn that into like, I want to hire this guy to only do this and not hire somebody who does a little bit of everything. I want to scale the company that way and be able to pay people and like not change their lives, but like be able to provide them a stable job within the industry.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I think dude, honestly, I love that last piece, because it's just like there's nothing stable about esports right now. Because it's still brand new. I mean, we're just although it's exploded, there's a lot of growth. It's a lot easier today than it was, or the path is more clear than it was like 10 years ago. But still, like I look at the last guest I had on here was actually Ash's he's the UIU Gears coach, and dude, awesome, man. I love that chat. And he dove into a little bit of like the like when you lose, then sponsors may drop out, players may get cut, and this is people's livelihoods. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing for a business owner. I mean, I love the fact that like to be able to provide stability in the esports industry. I think it's a bigger thing than most people realize. Like that would just be awesome. So
yeah, I mean, and on the same note of the stability, like coming into COVID, right? Like I consider myself pessimistically optimistic in the sense that while there's something crazy happening, I understand the severity of it, but I try to be optimistic about it, or vice versa. I guess it's a real vision is kind of what I have. But we came into COVID and I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. We might, tank. The company might have to shut down or whatever. So immediately my brain went into like, what happens if this happens? Yeah. How do I sustain myself? How do I be able to provide the same financial feeling that I have now? Not that I make a stupid amount of money, but like what I'm saying is, can I get by if I had to shut the company down today? Right. And to me, it was a huge learning experience at the beginning of COVID, because I understood that, just because I feel financially stable now, that could be taken away. And if that does get taken away, I know the steps I need to take to make sure that, I am in a financially safe place, whether that's a culmination of hustling through all the different skill sets I have, or, I sell myself somewhere or whatever that looks like, and sell myself in the sense like, I pitch myself as a service. But like, or, I take a ton of freelance work, or I do something based on my skill set. I know I can get somewhere with it. And it's super important that there are people out there. And, if anybody takes one thing away from this podcast, it's super important to, if you have an entrepreneurial itch, or if you think you're a business person, or if you want to do anything, or if you want to get anywhere, figuring out what you're super good at and just leaning into it. If you're a good public speaker, lean into that. Speak on the corner. People might think you're crazy, but one viral clip and you're more or less famous. If you're a gamer, obviously esports, same thing. We're already in here, but like if you're a good designer, design shit. If you're good at marketing, pitch to people that you're a good marketer, work for free for a week or two, and just whatever it is, scale into whatever your skill set is. And like you can be financially safe if you lean into that.
Yeah. No, you make a fantastic point. I think before we shut it down, I want to highlight that last part. Like the people like free, like people, it's how D-Rock got his job with Gary. Like that's how, like, you know what I mean? Like I love that story,
Yeah. Even to like tie it to the esports space. Like I'm pretty sure, I don't know the exact story. I didn't get to listen to the podcast that he was on yet, but like Matt, the photographer, videographer, editor that works for Hex. I'm pretty sure that relationship started on just him being like, yo, I want to basically do this.
Exactly.
Kind of similar concept to like D-Rock and Gary Vee for the people who are esports only, I guess is kind of why I'm saying this.
Oh yeah.
Like, and to be honest, I'm sorry to go off on this tangent, but I've had people reach out to me too, and I have this feeling of like it's hard for me to have a certain expectation of somebody when they want to work for free, So like when people reach out to me and say I want to work for free, it's really hard for me to say yes, because I mentally won't hold you to a certain standard because I'm not paying you.
Gotcha.
So like if I take a chance on that person and it flops, then it might be a bad look. But so I'm a little weird about it.
Yeah.
But I'm all for it if you're on the other side of it. So like I've done tons of free work. I've done tons of free creative, tons of free photography and videography, and I've done a lot of just favors for people, and all of that good karma comes back, whether it's just karma or it's like a job opening that comes up or whatever it is. It all comes full circle.
Yeah, always, and it never doesn't. I think that's I think we'll end it on that, man. Like it's there's analytics, there's data, there's strategy, there's this, but at the end of the day, if you love what you do and you try to be better at it, people are going to recognize that. Like with these podcasts, like sometimes there's only a few people that listen to each episode, but like who are those people? Like what are they being inspired by? What is it that they're going to go do? What difference could they make? It all happens, So
yeah.
Long story short, man, all comes full circle. But Zach, pleasure having you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Yeah, dude, absolute treat.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. This episode has been a long time coming. But I'm super excited, or not excited anymore. I'm very happy to have been on here. It's been a great episode. I love talking to you.
Dude.
It was a good episode.
So lastly, before we shut it off, where can people find you? Where is the most active? Where's your company at? I'll definitely put some stuff in the show notes, but I want people to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, Sector 6, we have a few different handles. We're on Twitter, or that's our biggest one, sector_6, and then sector6apparel.com
cool.
are probably the most informational places you're going to find on us. And then for me, it's just Zach Sass with a K on literally every social media platform. I was able to get that for myself, but not the company, which is kind of upsetting. But yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere socially, or I try to be.
Yeah.
So wherever you guys are on, hit me up, and if you got questions, I'm here to answer them.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. I'll put all that in the show notes below. That way people can get an easy click. And yeah, dude. Fantastic, man. Dude, have a great rest of your day, brother.
Yeah, same to you. Same to you. Bye.
Sick, man.